All right, so we are on page 315, 315, and we're going to be doing completing the square, which I didn't even write on a board. I told you I'm filming all on the same day. What a slacker I am. So instead of writing on a board, I'm going to put it on your screen with some cool music. Ready? We're doing completing the square. That's kind of cool. All right, so completing the square. All right, so completing the square, it says there on page 315. It says, although, read with me please, quit staring at me. All right, look at the book. Although the equation x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 5 is not a pure quadratic, it can still be solved by extracting the root because x squared minus 6x plus 9 factors as x minus 3 times x minus 3. In other words, it's a perfect square. That's a binomial perfect square, but it's a perfect square. Let's pause there and just write down what they did. All right, so we have x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 5. X squared minus 6x. Now, watch what they're doing here, right? Even though it's not perfect because it doesn't have say equals 0, it has to do that to be a perfect quadratic. All right, but you can still solve it because this will be broken down as x minus 3 minus 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Add them together is negative 6. Now before we had equals 0, so we do the 0 property, but you can't do that now. So this is the same thing as x minus 3 squared, because there's two of them, equals 5. Square root. Leaves me with just x minus 3. Square root. Alright, so equals square root of 5. I'm going to add 3. Add 3 over here. So x equals 3 plus minus the square root of 5. Because there is no square root of 5, so it leaves that. Alright, so it's just putting one more step into things. But you can solve it. The next paragraph says this. Alright, I'll read it while I erase the board. You look at your book. It says the quadratic x squared plus 8x equals 4, however, cannot be immediately solved by extracting the root because x squared plus 8x is not a perfect square. The left side of the equation can be made into a perfect square if the constant 16 is added to it. The addition property of equality says, I'll summarize, what you do to one side you can do to the other, it doesn't change anything. Here's what they're saying on this one. Look at the board. You have 8x squared plus 8x, x squared plus 8x equals 4, right? Now what they're saying is this. You say, if you stuck with your other rules and you brought this 4 over, right? Prepare to erase. X squared plus 8x minus 4 equals 0. Is there anything that you can factor this down in any way? I mean, that'd be plus 2 minus 2, but that doesn't equal 8 when you do your outer and inner. So what they're saying is this, right? When you have it in this case, as long as you do it to both sides, you can work it out. So let's make this into a perfect quadratic. So I have x squared plus 8x plus something equals 4. Now, what would this have to be to get 8x? Right? What times what would give me something added together is 8. Right? The way to find this, you multiply this times 2, right? But it would be 16. Now, why is that? Because now when you broke that down, it would be x plus 4, x plus 4. 4 times 4 is 16, 4x and 4x is 8x. But what I did there, I'm going to have to do over here. So now I have x squared plus 8x plus 16 equals 20. All right? Then now I can break this down into x plus 4, x plus 4. Don't lose me. That's the same thing as x plus 4 squared equals 20. Square root. Square root. Now I have x plus 4 equals positive, negative, with 20. I know it's 4 times 5, so it would be 2 square root of 5. Subtract this 4. So when I subtract the 4 on the other side, I'm going to have x equals a -4 positive -2 square root of 5. And that's the actual answer. Now there was a lot of steps there. I could totally redo the problem, or I could tell you stop right now, rewind to the 4-minute mark and watch that again, which obviously I'm going to do. All right, so if you just look at it again now, knowing where you're heading, it might work out. When you have to finish or add to the problem, I did it there, what I had to do there, it's called completing the square. That's what this whole chapter is about. Let's read the next paragraph. It says, this method of solution takes the given part of a perfect square and completes it. Thus, it's known as completing the square. This technique can be used to solve quadratic equations that cannot be solved by factoring. So in other words, if you can't factor it down, you're going to have to do this. In fact, completing the square can be used to solve every quadratic equation, technically. Next paragraph. To complete the square of a quadratic equation, first ensure that the quadratic equation is in the correct form. All right? And then you're going to square half of the linear coefficient. What? All right? In other words, I'll show you in a second. But to find it, the 3 steps are, number 1, find half of the linear equation, square the result from step 1, add the square from step 2 to finish the quadratic. A lot of confusing words because Becca's really good at that. I hate chalk. Have I ever told you that? All right, but here's the bottom line on how to do this. Again, we'll make it simple for you. At least we'll try to. All right? But the first one says, the first example, they're going to show you what we mean by complete the factor. All right? Complete and factor the square. So if I have x squared plus 10x. All right? They want us to complete the factor. In other words, what do I need to add to it to make it a good quadratic? And it has to work out. So the way to do it, if you remember here, all right, it says find half of the linear coefficient. All right? So what's half of 10? 5. All right? 5. Then it says under number 2, square that result. So what's 5 squared? 25. And then you always be able, this can now be factored down, x plus 5, x plus 5. Okay? So again, when you're finding and finishing, all right, that's the completing, couldn't remember that word, completing the square, you find half of the coefficient, and then you square it. So half of 10 is 5, then you square it. Half the coefficient, then square it. Look down at the next example. We have x plus 5x, or x squared plus 5x. Sometimes they don't just work out perfectly. X plus 5x. Now, you say, half of 5 is 2.5. I get it. The way to find a half of anything is multiply it by a half. Right? 100 times a half is 50. Right? Well, proof, here you go. 100 times 1/2 is 50. So here, I'm going to multiply this by a half. So 5 over 1 times 1/2, which gives me 5 over 2. Then I square it. All right? Now you can multiply it out, but in algebra you can just say 5 over 2 squared. Then I completed the square. So that's all we're doing. So it's not too awful bad. Next, they give you another example down at the bottom. X squared minus 1/2x. X squared minus 1/2x. X squared minus 1/2x. So first of all, you're going to find half of the coefficient. So I'm going to multiply 1/2 times a negative 1/2. Positive times negative is a negative 1/4. Then I square it. But I'm just going to write, plus a negative 1/4 squared. And you're done. So, okay. So half the middle term's coefficient and then square it. That's all we're doing. Got those 2 rules? Then you're golden. Page 317, 9.3. All right, so number 1, here we go. We have x squared plus 10x. So we're going to half this, 1/2 times 10, which gives me 5. Then we're going to square it, which gives me 25. So now I have x squared plus 10x plus 25 equals 0. Then it's going to give me x plus 5, x plus 5. All right? And so your final answer they want is x plus 5, x plus 5. So you're going to factor it down. We're not solving it, it just says complete it and then factor it. Now we could solve it if you want to. It would be x negative 5. Right? But all they want us to do is get it down to this point. All right, let's skip down number 5. Number 5. Number 5 says x squared plus 6x. So to complete it, I half this. 1/2 times 6 is 3. Square it. Gives me 9. So I have x squared plus 6x plus 9. Now factor that down. X plus 3, x plus 3. Final answer. $1 million. Thank you. Let's go number 7. Number 7 says x squared minus 3x. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is half the negative 3x. So 1/2 times a negative 3, which gives me a negative 3 over 2. So now I'm going to have plus a negative 3 over 2 squared. Then comes the fun part with this one, right? So this is going to equal x times x minus minus. Now this would be 2 times 3 over 2, because it's 3 over 2 squared. So x minus 3 over 2, 3 over 2. Does it work out? All right? You know that will equal that because it's squared. So if we did the outer and the inner thing, all right, you have negative 3 over 2 and then negative 3 over 2x, which gives me a negative 6 over 2, which is equal to what? Yes, it works, right? So keep the fraction, right? That was number 7. So x equals negative 3 over 2 times x minus 3 over 2 times x minus 3 over 2. They do a lot with fractions. All right, let's just do one more. Number 16, x squared plus 4/3 x. X squared plus 4/3 x. So I'm going to half this, so 1/2 times 4 over 3, which gives me 4 over 6. All right? So I now have x squared plus 4/3 x. Now I have to square this, so plus 4 over 6 squared, which gives me x plus 4 over 6 times x plus 4 over 6. All right? All right? So, I mean, you could reduce the 4 over 6 to 2/3, but it's all good. You don't have to reduce right now. So, all right? So, I mean, that's really it. Should I do one more? I hear you saying yes. So, I don't feel the confidence oozing out of the screen, all right? So we'll do one more. Let's do number random 21, all right? X squared minus 5/9 x. All right? Ooh, I'm almost at 15 minutes, so that has to be the last one. All right, so again, I half that. You always half the middle. So 1/2 times a negative 5 over 9. Which gives me 5 over 18, negative 5 over 18. Then I square that for this last term. So x squared negative 5/9 x plus a negative 5 over 18 squared. Which leaves me with x and x has to be negative negative 5 over 18, 5 over 18. All right? So that was number x squared. All right, so x minus 5 over 18. All right, so All right, so that's really all there is to it. So I want you to try these, and you should be able to do them. All right. Again, simply put, you're going to find half that middle term, then square that. That completes it, then factor it down. And if you have a fraction here, all right, just leave it. Don't work out nothing. Leave it in the square, and then just write it twice, because writing it twice means that. All right. So you're good. So I just want you to do 1 through 20. All right, we've already done some of them. 1 through 20, page 317. That's a week. And we'll do lesson 9.4 on Monday, the next week, which is your last week. Yes.